I'm Allison, 27, and I've been coding since I could barely reach the keyboard. What started as a childhood passion turned into something revolutionary during college, an AI algorithm that could have changed the world. I never imagined my own parents would sell my life's work while I was away thinking it was worthless junk, or that months later we'd all watch it transform into a billion-dollar enterprise that made someone else rich. Before I dive into how my own family betrayed me, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had someone underestimate your dreams. I grew up in a modest neighborhood in Seattle where tech was booming all around us, yet somehow remained distant from our household. My dad Michael struggled as a real estate agent in a competitive market, bringing home inconsistent paychecks that left our family budget tight most months. Mom Diana taught third grade at the local elementary school, bringing stability, but not much extra. The turning point in my life happened when I was 8. My uncle Jake, who always seemed to understand me better than my parents, gifted me his old laptop when he upgraded. It wasn't fancy, scratched case missing a few keys, but to me, it was magic. I still remember my dad rolling his eyes saying, "Great, another screen to rot her brain." But that laptop opened doors. I started teaching myself coding through books I'd check out from the library, spending my allowance on programming magazines, instead of the clothes or makeup my mother thought I should be interested in. Whenever the library got internet, I'd download free tutorials onto my flash drive and work on them at home. "Allison, dinner's ready. Get your face out of that computer," became the daily soundtrack of my childhood. My parents viewed my passion as a distraction, something that would never lead anywhere practical. "You should focus more on your math and science," my mom would say, not realizing coding was applied math and science. When I was 14, I created my first real application, a simple program that helped teachers track student reading progress. I entered it in the school science fair and won first place. The principal even mentioned implementing it school-wide. I ran home excited, trophy in hand, only to have my dad shrug and say, "That's nice, honey, but when are you going to develop some practical skills? Not everyone can be Bill Gates." That moment crystallized the emotional distance growing between us. My parents weren't cruel, they just couldn't see value in what I loved. They worried about practicality in a world where they'd always struggled financially. Mom wanted me to become a teacher with steady employment. Dad thought business or law would be sensible careers. Our home atmosphere grew increasingly tense as financial pressures mounted. Dad's real estate business suffered during the housing market downturn, and Mom's teacher salary had to stretch further. I overheard their late-night arguments about Bill's college funds and retirement worries. I retreated deeper into coding, staying late at school to use their faster computers, joining online forums where people actually appreciated my work. My bedroom became less a living space and more a makeshift coding lab with papers and notebooks filled with algorithms and ideas. "This isn't normal," my mother said once, standing in my doorway. "Girls your age should be socializing, not typing alone in the dark." What they saw as isolation, I experienced as connection to a global community of innovators. What they viewed as a waste of time was actually me building skills that would later become invaluable. Their dismissal only fueled my determination to prove that my passion could become something significant. By high school graduation, I had one goal: to get far enough away to pursue technology without constant discouragement, yet create something so impressive they'd finally understand. Little did I know how complicated that wish would become. Despite my parents' skepticism, I earned a substantial scholarship to attend one of the country's top tech universities. I still remember my father's backhanded compliment, "Well, at least all that computer time didn't completely ruin your grades." They drove me to campus in silence, helped unload my belongings, and left with mechanical hugs and a reminder to study something practical. Freedom from their constant doubt felt intoxicating. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who spoke my language and shared my excitement for technology. During freshman orientation, I met Professor Sarah Winters, who would become my greatest ally and mentor. After reviewing some of my high school projects, she took me aside. "You have raw talent that can't be taught," she said, the first authority figure to ever truly validate my passion. With the right guidance, you could create something extraordinary. Under her mentorship, I declared a computer science major with a focus on artificial intelligence. I also formed deep friendships with two classmates, Jackson, a brilliant theoretical mathematician with a quirky sense of humor, and Tara, whose expertise in data structures perfectly complemented my algorithmic thinking. The three of us spent countless nights in the 24-hour computer lab surrounded by empty energy drink cans and takeout containers. During one such session at around 3 in the morning, when Jackson had fallen asleep on his keyboard and Tara was debugging code, something clicked in my brain. What if we approached machine learning from an entirely different angle? I remember saying, jolting them both to attention. Instead of training algorithms with massive datasets, what if we created a system that could generate its own training scenarios based on minimal inputs? That night marked the birth of what we'd later call the adaptive learning engine. For the next 2 years, I obsessively refined this concept, filling notebooks with diagrams, code segments, and theoretical frameworks. The potential applications were endless medical diagnosis, with minimal patient data, financial forecasting, with limited market information, climate modeling, with sparse environmental readings. Professor Winters provided crucial guidance, helping me navigate complex technical challenges. "You're pushing boundaries that even established researchers haven't explored," she told me after reviewing my progress during junior year. While I kept digital copies of my work on the university servers, I maintained physical backups in notebooks and external hard drives. During holiday breaks, I'd bring these materials home, working from my childhood bedroom. My parents never asked about my project beyond occasional comments like, "Still playing with your computer stuff, I see." By senior year, word of my project spread through the department. The campus tech incubator offered seed funding to develop a commercial application, and 2 professors suggested applying for patents. But something held me back. The technology wasn't quite ready, and I envisioned something more groundbreaking than what they were proposing. "Take your time," Professor Winters advised. "True innovation can't be rushed." During my final winter break at home, I explained to my parents that major companies might eventually be interested in my work. "That's nice, honey," my mother replied, barely looking up from her magazine. "But you should still apply for some teaching positions as a backup." My father was more direct. "Those tech companies hire 1 in 1,000 applicants. Don't put all your eggs in that basket." I returned to campus more determined than ever to perfect my project, never suspecting that this would be the last time I'd see my work in my childhood home. The spring of my senior year, an unexpected opportunity landed in my inbox, a prestigious 3-month internship with a technology firm in Tokyo. Professor Winters had recommended me personally, emphasizing how the experience would enhance both my technical skills and professional network. "This could be the perfect launchpad for your project," she insisted. "Plus, the timing works perfectly with graduation." I accepted, immediately thrilled, yet anxious about spending so much time abroad. The weeks before departure were a whirlwind of visa applications, packing, and finalizing graduation requirements. I carefully organized my project materials, leaving the physical backups in what I thought was the secure environment of my parents' home. The goodbye with Jackson and Tara was emotional, filled with promises to stay connected and continue collaborating remotely. "Take lots of pictures and eat weird stuff," Jackson insisted, while Tara made me promise to check my email daily for their updates on our shared projects. The farewell with my parents was predictably awkward. Mom fussed over my suitcases while Dad gave practical advice about exchange rates and public transportation. Neither mentioned my project or career aspirations. I left feeling the familiar mixture of disappointment and determination that had defined our relationship for years. Tokyo was transformative. The technology firm paired me with innovative developers working on cutting-edge applications. During off hours, I refined my own algorithm, occasionally video chatting with Professor Winters to discuss my progress. Between the time difference and busy schedule, my communications with home became sporadic. About 6 weeks into the internship, I noticed something odd. Mom mentioned they were finally getting around to cleaning up my room during our brief weekly calls. "We need the space," she explained vaguely. When I asked what they planned to do with my things, she changed the subject. Then came a social media post that made my blood run cold. A former high school classmate messaged me, "Just saw your parents meeting with Travis Wilson at Cafe Luna. Isn't he that tech investor guy? Are they working on something cool?" Travis Wilson was indeed a local angel investor known for funding early-stage tech startups. What business would my technology-averse parents have with him? I tried calling home immediately, but no one answered. My texts received delayed cryptic responses. "Just handling some household business, and nothing for you to worry about." 3 agonizing days later, I finally reached them on a video call. The casual way they delivered the news still haunts me. "Oh, by the way," Mom said, folding laundry as she spoke, "we cleared out all that computer junk from your room. This nice businessman said he'd take it off our hands." "What computer junk?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You know, all those notebooks and hard drives taking up space?" Dad chimed in, looking pleased with himself. "The guy gave us $15,000 cash. Can you believe someone would pay that much for old notes?" The room seemed to spin around me. "You sold my project, the one I've been working on for years." "Honey, you graduated already," Mom replied, looking confused by my reaction. "And you've got that job in Japan now. We thought you were done with all that college stuff." "It wasn't college stuff," I shouted, tears streaming down my face. "It was my intellectual property, my invention. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Their expressions shifted from confusion to defensiveness. "Now don't be dramatic," Dad said sternly. "We got good money for it. You should be thanking us." $15,000, I cried. "That project could be worth millions. I was planning to launch a company around it." Mom scoffed. "Millions? Allison, be reasonable. If it was worth that much, why were you keeping it in shoeboxes under your bed?" No matter how I tried to explain, they couldn't grasp the magnitude of their betrayal. The call ended with them accusing me of being ungrateful and always exaggerating, while I sat alone in my tiny Tokyo apartment thousands of miles from home, realizing everything I'd worked for had been sold out from under me. I couldn't focus on anything after that devastating call. The remainder of my workday passed in a blur, with colleagues noticing my distress, but attributing it to homesickness. That night, I made the difficult decision to cut my internship short, citing a family emergency. My supervisors were understanding if disappointed, and within 48 hours I was on a flight back to Seattle. The confrontation at my parents' house was worse than I'd imagined. They greeted me with confusion rather than remorse. "You flew all the way back for this?" Dad asked incredulously. "We thought you'd be happy about the money." I spent hours trying to explain the value of intellectual property, the years of research that went into my algorithm, and the potential applications that made it so valuable. They listened with increasing discomfort as the reality of their actions slowly dawned on them. "We had no idea," Mom finally admitted, her voice small. "We thought it was just old schoolwork." "Who exactly did you sell it to?" I demanded. After some back and forth, they revealed it was not Travis Wilson as I'd feared, but Thomas Wright, founder of Nexus Innovations, a small but ambitious tech startup gaining attention in the Seattle area. Apparently, he'd approached them after hearing about my project through university channels, offering cash on the spot for all my materials. I spent the next day frantically searching for any remaining notes or backups. My childhood bedroom had been completely reorganized, all traces of my work gone. The external hard drives, notebooks, prototype sketches, everything sold to a stranger. My college friend Layla, now in her first year of law school, agreed to meet for coffee and discuss my options. Her assessment was grim. "Without proper patents already filed and with your parents legally giving him possession of the physical materials, you're in a tough position," she explained gently. "You could try to prove the intellectual property was developed by you, but that's an uphill battle without the original materials." I attempted to contact Wright directly, calling Nexus Innovations repeatedly, only to be told he was unavailable. Emails went unanswered. In desperation, I visited their office in person, where a sympathetic receptionist named Marissa confirmed they were indeed working on a new AI project, but couldn't share details. "Thomas has been really excited lately," she whispered. "He's been pulling all-nighters with the development team since acquiring some new research." I gathered what evidence I could, contacting Jackson and Tara for their recollections of our work together. Professor Winters wrote a detailed statement confirming my role as the primary developer of the algorithm. But as Layla warned, without the original materials or patents filed, proving ownership would be difficult and expensive. When I presented this collection of evidence to my parents, the gravity of their mistake finally hit home. Dad's face crumpled as he realized what he'd done, while Mom burst into tears. "We were just trying to help," she sobbed. "The house needs repairs, and your father's business has been struggling." "We can give you the money," Dad offered weakly. "It's not about the money," I explained for what felt like the 100th time. "That project was my future, my life's work." They began making awkward attempts at apologies, offering to speak to Wright themselves, or help me financially while I started over. But their suggestions only highlighted how little they understood about the years of work they'd casually disposed of. The worst part was realizing that even now they didn't fully comprehend what they'd taken from me. To them, it was still just computer stuff that could be recreated with enough time and effort, not understanding that true innovation rarely strikes twice in the same way. 6 months passed in a blur of dead-end legal consultations and unanswered messages to Nexus Innovations. I'd taken a basic programming job at a local company to pay bills while trying to rebuild some version of my work from memory and the few digital fragments I'd stored on university servers. Then came the press release that changed everything. Nexus Innovations unveils revolutionary adaptive AI platform, securing $50 million in first-round funding. The article detailed a breakthrough technology that could generate complex learning models from minimal data inputs, the exact functionality of my algorithm. The business and tech media exploded with coverage. Thomas Wright was hailed as a visionary, giving interviews about his years of work leading to this breakthrough. I watched in horror as Nexus's stock price tripled in a single day after the announcement. Major tech companies began circling with partnership offers. Industry analysts predicted applications in healthcare, finance, and environmental science, all uses I'd outlined in my original notes. During a product demonstration live-streamed online, I recognized my code architecture, my unique approach to machine learning patterns. Even some variable names looked familiar. Wright had clearly built upon my foundation, perhaps improving certain aspects, but the core innovation was unquestionably mine. In desperation, I sent a detailed email directly to Wright, outlining my role in developing the technology, attaching statements from Professor Winters and my classmates, along with fragments of my original code from university backups. "I'm not looking to cause trouble," I wrote. "I just want recognition for my work and the opportunity to be part of its future development." 3 days later, I received a response from Nexus's legal department. "Mr. Wright acknowledges your early theoretical work in this area and appreciates your interest. However, Nexus Innovations legally purchased all materials and intellectual property from your representative's parents in good faith. Our development team has substantially transformed and improved upon these initial concepts to create our proprietary technology. As a gesture of goodwill, Mr. Wright would be pleased to consider you for an entry-level position on our development team with our standard compensation package, should you wish to apply through normal channels." The same day, a major tech blog published an interview with Wright where he casually mentioned acquiring intellectual property from a promising young developer that helped accelerate our existing research. When Nexus's valuation hit $1 billion after a second funding round, the news made local headlines. My parents saw it while watching evening news, finally comprehending the magnitude of what they'd done. They showed up at my apartment unannounced, my father clutching the newspaper, my mother's eyes red from crying. "We had no idea," Dad kept repeating. "How could we have known?" "I told you," I said simply. "You just never listened." Their attempts at apology felt hollow after watching someone else receive accolades and wealth for my innovation. They offered to speak to the media about what happened, but I knew that would only make me look petty and desperate without changing anything. That night, staring at Wright's smiling face on the cover of Technology Today magazine, I made a decision. If I couldn't reclaim my past work, I would find a way to control my future. The next morning, I called Jackson and Tara. Within hours, they arrived at my apartment, arms loaded with takeout and determination to help. "This isn't over," Jackson insisted, spreading cartons of Chinese food across my coffee table. "We were there from the beginning. We know the truth." Tara, always the pragmatic one, opened her laptop. "We need a strategy, not just outrage." Over the next several days, we formulated a plan. Professor Winters connected me with Sophia Chen, a tech journalist known for covering intellectual property issues in the industry. While she couldn't promise anything, she was interested in hearing my story. "Document everything," she advised during our first meeting. "Create a timeline, gather all evidence of your development process, and identify specific unique elements that appear in both your original work and their product." We created a comprehensive portfolio university server logs, showing when I'd worked on specific components, emails, discussing the project with professors and classmates, even cafeteria receipts from late-night coding sessions. It wasn't the original code, but it painted a picture of development that predated Wright's supposed breakthrough. Simultaneously, we started a subtle social media campaign using the hashtag #JusticeForInnovators, sharing stories about intellectual property theft in tech without directly naming Nexus. The goal wasn't accusation, but awareness, creating a receptive environment for when my story eventually went public. The first crack in Wright's facade appeared when a small tech blog ran an article titled "The Curious Case of Nexus's Overnight Innovation," questioning how a company with no previous work in advanced AI suddenly produced such sophisticated technology. Wright's response was telling. Instead of addressing the specific technical questions, Nexus issued a blanket statement about proprietary development processes and legally acquired research assets. The pressure intensified when my parents, finally understanding their role in this injustice, posted a public apology on social media. As parents, we made a terrible mistake selling our daughter's academic work without her knowledge or consent. We didn't understand its value or significance, and now a major company is profiting from her years of innovation. We're heartbroken about our role in this situation and want to set the record straight. Their post went viral in Seattle tech circles, eventually reaching industry forums nationwide. While some commenters dismissed it as a family seeking financial gain, others, particularly developers, recognized the ring of truth. Senior developers from major tech companies began weighing in, noting the unlikely speed of Nexus's development given the complexity of the technology. A few who had seen my presentations at university tech symposiums made connections to my earlier work. The turning point came when Jackson made a breakthrough. Digging through old cloud accounts, he discovered a partial backup of our early development discussions on a shared project management tool we'd used briefly before switching platforms. "It's not the full code," he explained excitedly, "but it clearly shows the conceptual framework and key algorithmic approaches that are now in Nexus's product, with timestamps from 2 years before Wright claims to have begun development." Armed with this evidence, Sophia Chen published a detailed investigative piece titled "The Billion-Dollar Algorithm, Innovation Theft, or Something in Between." The article carefully presented both sides, but raised serious questions about the origins of Nexus's technology. Within hours of publication, Nexus's legal team sent cease and desist letters to both Sophia and me, inadvertently lending credibility to the accusations by their aggressive response. The tech community rallied around me, with established developers offering technical analysis, supporting my claims, and industry forums buzzing with discussions about ethics in acquisition of intellectual property. As public pressure mounted and investors began asking uncomfortable questions, Wright's carefully constructed narrative began to unravel. 3 weeks after Sophia's article, my phone rang with an unknown number. It was a representative from Kingston, Marshall & Patel, one of Seattle's top corporate law firms. "Ms. Allison, we represent Nexus Innovations. Mr. Wright would like to discuss a resolution to this unfortunate situation." The settlement negotiation process was grueling. Nexus initially offered a small consulting fee and credit as a contributing researcher in exchange for my silence and relinquishing all claims. My newly acquired pro bono attorney, a specialist in IP theft cases, who had reached out after reading Sophia's article, advised patience. They're worried. Their investors are asking questions, and the longer this stays in the news, the more damage to their reputation. After 3 rounds of negotiations, Wright offered a more substantial settlement, $25 million, plus a small equity stake in Nexus. While this represented just a fraction of the technology's true value, my attorney advised accepting. You could fight for years through the courts with no guarantee of winning, or you can take this money now and build something new, she explained. Sometimes victory isn't getting everything you deserve, but getting enough to move forward on your own terms. I accepted the offer with mixed emotions. The money felt simultaneously like validation and an insult, acknowledgement of my contribution, yet far less than what my innovation was truly worth. The settlement included a non-disclosure agreement preventing me from discussing specific details, but allowed me to acknowledge my role in the algorithm's early development. With the settlement funds, I launched my own startup focused on an evolved version of my original concept. I assembled a team including Jackson and Tara, along with other talented developers who believed in both the technology and in me. Throughout this process, my relationship with my parents remained complicated. They made awkward attempts to reconnect, clearly devastated by the consequences of their actions. Dad would send articles about technology or entrepreneurship while Mom dropped off home-cooked meals at my apartment. "We're so sorry," became their constant refrain. "We just didn't understand." The hardest part wasn't losing the money or recognition. It was processing how the people who should have believed in me the most had so casually dismissed something I'd poured my heart into. Their betrayal, however unintentional, cut deeper than Wright's opportunism. Gradually, I moved from bitter resentment toward cautious forgiveness. They hadn't acted out of malice but ignorance, a failure of imagination rather than character. As my new company gained traction, they made genuine efforts to understand my work, attending every product launch and investor meeting. Within 2 years, my new company secured significant funding based on legitimate innovation and proper legal protection. We established a scholarship for young coders from unsupportive backgrounds, providing not just financial assistance, but mentorship and legal guidance on protecting intellectual property. In an unexpected turn, my parents became volunteers for a program teaching older generations about technology and innovation, helping bridge the generational gap in digital understanding. Dad would often tell other parents, "The computer stuff you think is just a hobby could be the next billion-dollar idea." I learned that lesson the hard way. Looking back, I realized that innovation isn't just about technology, but resilience. Every entrepreneur faces setbacks, though few have their life's work sold by their own family. What matters isn't just what you create, but how you respond when it's taken from you. I still see Thomas Wright on magazine covers and tech conference stages. Nexus continues to profit from technology built on my foundation. But I've created something new. Something entirely mine, protected and valued in ways my original work never was. The greatest lesson wasn't about patents or legal protection, but about believing in your own worth, even when those closest to you don't see it. Sometimes the people who should support you the most understand you the least. Your vision isn't invalidated by their inability to see it. Have you ever had someone underestimate your dreams or talents? How did you prove them wrong and reclaim your power? Share your story in the comments below, and if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs to hear that their work matters regardless of who believes in it. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, your vision is valuable even before others recognize its worth.